Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube land. Roknot here with another video. Tonight, we're going to continue my mental health journey with talking about my experience in a mental health ward of my local hospital. If you have watched the previous mental health video, you would already know that I was in the mental health ward on a 72-hour watch, which means that I was on a Form 1, which means I was a risk to myself and to others. Now, as you would know by watching the video, my psychologist sent me to the hospital in order to get the help. And so this video is basically just going to cover my experience there. Now, I'll start with when I was there. When I got there, I was pretty much left in a hallway. And to the unbeknownst to me, I was actually being watched by a security guard on the floor. Now, there was actually a few people he was watching, but me primarily. They left me out in the hallway, one, because I could wear all my clothes and wasn't wearing a hospital gown, and two, because I was a risk. They didn't want me harming myself without being, they didn't want me harming myself under their guise. So that afternoon, I spent most of that afternoon and evening and into the night talking with the security guard, who I didn't know was watching me at the time until later. His name was Oak, and he really made the whole day bearable, we'll say. He was a really cool guy, into a lot of the same stuff, right? Into Dungeons and Dragons and video games and stuff like that. Wish I'd met him under different circumstances, though. So I met with the doctor when I got there, and the doctor basically put me on the 72-hour lockdown, essentially, and which means I couldn't leave the hospital. Once I got up into the psych ward, I couldn't leave the psych ward. I was basically confined to that ward and to my room. Not really confined to my room other than when it was time to go to bed. But, yeah. So anyways, I ended up having to talk with a crisis nurse who was a complete douchebag, we'll say. Not only did he sit there and blame my obesity, my lifestyle, my wife, and video games for my problem. To which at some point I said, well, what if I was, instead of being 340 pounds, being, say 200 pounds, fit, an athletic dude, what would be your fucking diagnosis then? And it was just getting frustrating talking to him. I'd be telling him, he'd be asking me questions, and I'd be like, well, I handle that. And he'd be like, well, where's your wife and all this shit? And where's your wife and all this? And I'd be like, well, we're a dual income family, so she's working. And yeah, it just, just wasn't good. So anyways, I got to the hospital, I think about 1 o'clock-ish, in around there. And I finally got up to the ward about 10 o'clock that night. So about 9 hours sitting in the hallway. My wife did sit with me for a couple hours, but then I sent her back to work because she had to... she's a manager where she works and has to run all this other stuff and was already behind, and I wasn't going to be, I wasn't going to be the person to hold her back further. So I sent her to work. And I told her I would call if I needed her. Most of that afternoon, I got trapped in my own mind, thinking the worst. Started thinking I was truly a danger, and whether or not I'd ever leave the hospital. Started having visions of the worst, and then the guy in the room across from me, he was on a severe high, and he was absolutely belligerent, and they ended up strapping him to a table and him screaming and them giving him sedative after sedative and nothing fucking bringing him down. At one point, I think they said to me he had, I think, almost twice the amount of medication. Like, he had enough medication in him to drop me, and the guy's probably 115 pounds max. And so the guy was on some major pills. Probably like LSD or cocaine or whatever. Some real uppers, some speed, I don't know. I don't know street drugs. But that was kind of terrifying to listen to. I made jokes about it while I was there because that's who I am. I make jokes about that sort of shit. So finally I make it up to the mental health ward. And my wife is now back with me at this time. And as I'm walking up to the mental health ward, this is when I realize Oak was there watching me, because he accompanies me, my wife, and the nurse up to the room, or up to the mental health ward. When I saw the sign on the door that said mental health ward, I panicked, and I almost bolted. Because I knew once that door closed behind me, I was locked in there until they fucking let me out. Fearing they'd just pump me full of drugs. You think mental health ward, psychiatric ward, and you're thinking, the One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where they're just drug, and you're fucking strapped to a table. Right? And that's what I was fearing would happen with me. So, my wife drops off a bunch of stuff, brought me a bag with some clothes and some stuff in it. And then she is told that she has to leave. So then it's me and the nurse. I forget what her name was. And she ends up going through my entire bag, making sure there's nothing in the bag that could harm me. She takes away all of my electronic devices. Takes away all power cords, chargers, everything. Anything that could harm me. Was really starting to feel like a prisoner at that point. From that point, I was taken to my room, given a brief tour while we walked to my room, and then While in my room, she talked to me for a little bit longer, and then she left and came back, gave me some. That's when she started me on trazodone to help me sleep. Still on that to this day. And then made me promise not to hurt myself. To which I joked and said, well, you took away all the items that I could do damage with. And her response with the straightest of faces was, no, Robert, I need you to promise me you're not going to hurt yourself tonight. And I said, fine, I promise. And then they shut out the light. And yeah. Then during the course of the night, they check on you every hour. I couldn't fall asleep. I ended up getting a fucking burst of energy. I was, doing squats and push-ups against my bed. I was jogging on the spot. I was shadow boxing, which I realized at the point that that probably looked bad. It just, I couldn't settle down. Then finally, when I convinced myself to lie down, the whole events of the day just started going through my head. Started having visions. The bad visions. Like when I was meeting with that crisis nurse who was a guy. He said he was about 220. Probably pretty close. A little taller than me. I started having visions about him. About when I started getting really pissed off at the conversation. And then it turned to me attacking him. Beating him. Yeah. So the next morning, when I finally fell asleep at some point. I don't know how much sleep I got. It was a bad night. I didn't sleep well at all. The next morning, I was greeted with a really nice nurse. She was probably around 9 o'clock in the morning. She came in and greeted herself, student nurse. Really nice girl. But I started telling her about, the vision and stuff. And I'd already signed a thing where, they could share all the information. I tell them amongst themselves and shit, which is fine. I figured the less I fought them, the sooner they'd let me out. So I tell her about the vision. I tell her about what's kind of going on in my head. And she seems to sympathize with me. And, she seems really eager to help me with what my problem is. And I felt like there was a bit of a connection there. But I also found out that day if you don't eat your meals, they get really concerned about you. I don't typically eat breakfast. I haven't eaten breakfast in probably 20 years. So, when breakfast went out at 9 o'clock, and it was still 10 o'clock, and my tray was still full, I got real worried. Thought I was on a hunger strike. I said, no, I just don't eat breakfast. Then I didn't go to morning group, which when you're locked in a psychiatric ward, you're expected to go to group sessions every twice a day. One in the morning, one in the afternoon. Where it's not really group therapy, it's more like a group learning thing. I didn't go to that. They didn't like that very much either. I told them I wasn't comfortable going. They took that as my answer. Then lunch rolls around and I still wasn't feeling too hungry because I was mad. I was pissed off. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be anywhere but there. I was mad. I was mad at the crisis nurse from the day before. I was mad at my psychologist for tricking me into going there. I was mad at everybody. I was mad at my wife for agreeing with the psychologist and making me go to the hospital. I was mad. I was pissed off. But I went and I ate lunch begrudgingly. Sat in the eating hall where everybody else does, because you're not allowed to take food back to your room unless you bring snacks from the outside world, which your family would bring to you. But I sat there and I watched all the people around me. It was interesting to see all the different walks of life, the different ages. Some guys younger than me, most of them older. But it was weird. So then just after lunch, we'll say, I think it was about, I've got the journals here somewhere. And maybe I'll read you the journals at some point in this mental health series. From those days. But I think it was around 2 o'clock. I hear a familiar voice say to me, "So, what's this you want to cause me? So what's this you want to hurt me?" And I was writing a journal at the time, because I'd asked for a pen and piece of paper, which I didn't know they would give me, but they did. So I was thinking, I'm a danger to myself and to others, and you're going to give me a pen. Okay. But I'm sitting there and I'm writing a journal entry. I'd have to pull up the journals. I've got them here somewhere to tell you exactly what I was writing. But again, as I said, I heard that voice and I looked up, and it was the crisis nurse from the day before. He had heard that I wanted to hurt him. That wasn't the case. My vision turned to me hurting him. It wasn't that I really wanted to cause him harm. Yes, I hated him for everything he said. I was pissed off at him for what he did, for how he said it, but that's how my brain interpreted the whole thing. It was really weird. He's like, I was trying to help you and all this other shit. And at first I was taken aback and nervous by the whole thing. Trying to think of what his angle was. And then he started just lashing out at me. And then finally I had enough. I said, what? Especially when he said, I'm the one that helped you. I'm the one that got you in here. I'm the one, blah, blah, blah. I'm. Yeah. Just kept saying, I'm the one. And it fucking pissed me off. So when I sat there, I said, yeah, and you're the one that blames my obesity. You're the one that blames my lifestyle. You're the one that blames my wife for this shit. And he's like, what do you mean blaming your wife? And I snapped back at him. I said, and what your wife doing about when you're doing all this? Quoting him exactly from the day before. He's like, well, I gotta build a scenario of everything. And I said, and you're judging demeanor when I'm answering your fucking questions. And he's like, what? And I started going, like mocking him when he was sitting in the fucking chair, crossing his legs and looking all fucking like he had better things to do when he was supposed to be helping me the day before. But he stood in the doorway, blocking me from escape. My voice, I roared at him like I'd never yelled, like I haven't yelled at somebody like that in a long time. And, yeah. Soon he got sick of me yelling at him, and he took off. And then 2 nurses came running in, 2 females. And I immediately broke down. Broke down in tears like you wouldn't believe. Because immediately I started getting the shakes and getting scared that they were going to strap me to the bed and start pumping me full of drugs like the guy from the day before. I was so scared. They asked me what happened, and I said, the fucking bald goatee asshole came in here and started fucking shit with me. Had to be about 2:40, I think, because it was after group. Group was at 2. Group ended early that day, I remember. But then the rest of that day, my mind just raced about what transpired between me and that crisis nurse. Thoughts of, I just fucked up, I'm going to be in here for the rest of my life. Thoughts of, what did he have to gain from all of that? From getting me to yell at him like that? Thoughts of, did that really happen, or did I imagine it all? It was scary. Really scary to go through that, to doubt something that happened in your own mind. You just, when you can't believe your own thoughts, it's a scary thing. The rest of the day went off without a hitch, but that just enveloped my mind. I could not think of anything else that day. I wrote dozens of journal entries about it constantly. And back to the pen. I had of it, if you guys hadn't already clued in, my visions that I had usually involved brutal violence. So a funny vision I had while holding the pen was taking the pen and just jabbing it into my eye socket. Yeah. And then I laughed because, they took away, my power cords and everything, because I might be able to strangle myself with those. But I was still angry that Tuesday. My wife came and saw me in the afternoon. And she was so upset to see me that I was still there. And that she would be leaving with me still there. And I hid the fact that I was angry at her. I told her it was okay, and that was the best place for me. But I hated her that day. That was Tuesday. I went in on the Monday. The following day, the Wednesday, my mind's still racing about what happened with that crisis nurse. And I talked to my student nurse in the morning about that. And she didn't know what to think about it. But they did, the day before the Tuesday, they did move me to another room where I wouldn't be crossing paths with that crisis nurse. And good thing is I ended up with my own bathroom. Have my own suite, yeah. Funny thing is about that room is the door into the room wouldn't stay open, and the door into my bathroom wouldn't stay closed. And there was a mirror just right, because you can't have any corners in those places for people to jump out and attack somebody. If I left the bathroom door open, you could see into the bathroom from my doorway into my room. Yeah. So if I was in there taking a shit, yeah. So that wasn't fun. Wednesday was pretty nonchalant. Again, dealing with people who, of all different walks of life. But that Wednesday was kind of interesting because I came across the guy on Monday who was just so hopped up on drugs that they couldn't get him to settle down. And that he just seemed like a cool kid. He like early 20s. And he just, I stood there and I talked to him for a bit. And he just felt that, every time he ended up there, because apparently that wasn't his first time, he just felt he was a failure. Go figure. It was hard being there, knowing that all this other stuff is going on around me. Knowing that my kids are learning all this stuff and I can't talk to them. Knowing that there's a lot of stuff I had to do at work and I couldn't do it. They just wanted me to focus on myself and I couldn't do it. But I said all the right things to all the right people in hopes that they would let me out within the 72 hours. But Wednesday I decided, I had to eat breakfast that day or they were going to deem me unfit to leave. So I ate breakfast that day begrudgingly. I ate all 3 meals on time. Took all my pills without a hassle. Said all the right things to everybody, including my psychiatrist. As I sit here and talk about all this, I wonder why they let me out. Did they believe what I was saying? Thursday, the day of truth. Actually, that Wednesday night, or was it the Thursday morning? I can't remember. Might have been the Thursday morning. The nurse who initially got me into the room, not douchebag, the other one that made me promise that I wouldn't kill myself. I was taking my morning medication, and she said to me, if the psychiatrist discharges me, would I be against staying there for another week? And I said, honestly, I want to get out of here as soon as possible. I said, I can't stay here any longer. I said, I feel I will do more healing on my own, in my own environment, than if I stay here in this room. Plus, I felt if I stayed in that room any longer, I'd go fucking stir crazy. Like, fuck, I started reading books. I don't read books. And then the Wednesday, a new guy was brought in. And it looked like his significant other and his mother were there. Or maybe it was her mother, I don't know. And they seemed pretty upset by everything. Maybe the guy had tried to commit suicide, I don't know. But they were really upset, and they were at our dinner table, and noticed we were eating shepherd's pie because that's what the boyfriend said, and they were asking him if it was any good, and I said Gordon Ramsay would say it needs salt. So yeah. But that was pretty much Wednesday. Thursday was nerve-wracking because it was the day of truth. My 72 hours were coming up. I was counting down the seconds. My wife had came on Wednesday too, and we'd talked a little bit. By Thursday, I'd actually written a story for my kids. First story I'd finished in forever. I'd started many stories before going into the hospital, but I'd never finished any stories. And that was the first story I ever started and finished. Now granted, it was only 4 pages, but still, I finished it. And I felt a sense of accomplishment, a sense of achievement. All that squeaking is my wife walking by. My floors creak because I live in a really old house. Anyways, but that Thursday, counting down the seconds, and I'm waiting to meet with my psychiatrist again. And I'm just hoping and praying that he'll discharge me. But my mind just kept racing. What if he doesn't? I had told my student nurse the morning of, I said, fine, they could keep me over the weekend, but I had to be out by Monday for my daughter's birthday party. That's what I told them. I said, if you try to keep me till Monday, I'll smash this bloody window behind me and I'll run off to my daughter's birthday party. I'll come back. But if you send cops to try and get me at my daughter's birthday party, I'll fight them till my damn daughter's birthday's over. And then I'll come back. And she said, fair enough. Because all I talked about while I was there was my kids, right? I tried to be a good role model for my kids. Cypher. My damn dog's barking. I don't know what she's barking about. Anyways. So Thursday afternoon rolls up. And the thing I forgot to mention is that douchebag crisis nurse. The Monday where I was there, he threatened to have CAS take away my kids. And then Tuesday, he said maybe I should have your kids taken away. And that's when I remember now, that's when I really started to lose it on him. You don't threaten to take my kids. The reason I recalled that is because on Thursday, when I met with my psychiatrist the last time before my stay, I still meet with him now. I meet with him every 2 months now. I was greeted by a woman from there as well. CAS, I believe she was through CAS and worked in the hospital. And my wife was there. And they talked to me and my wife, and, they asked my wife if they felt that if she felt I was a danger to her. And she said, no, absolutely not. And they asked if she felt if I was a danger to the kids. And my wife said, absolutely not. She said, with 100% certainty, she believed that if I felt that I was going to go over that line, that I would harm myself before I did anything to anybody else. And with that, the psychiatrist and the lady, they talked a bit, and then they contacted the child services people, and because they have to, because I was put there on a form, and I have children under the age of 16, they have to contact them, and they were what's the word I'm thinking of? They were happy enough that I was seeking help and stuff, that they weren't going to investigate further, and that my psychiatrist was happy with the progression I have made in the time I had been there, that he would discharge me from the hospital. So I was discharged 72 hours after I was admitted, and I damn near hugged the guy. Actually, when he saw the look on my face when he said he was going to discharge me, he said, "Don't hug me." He's a small dude, I'd probably crush him. I said, "Okay, if you won't let me hug you, can I at least shake your hand?" And he said that would be fine, so I shook his hand. But I still do see him every 2 months. And between him and my psychologist and my family doctor, I've made quite a few leaps and bounds. Do I think I played the system a little bit by saying and doing everything I needed to do to get out of there as soon as I did? Hell yeah, I did. Should I have been there longer than I was? Oh, fuck yeah. Because when I got out of there, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to go back to normal life. I was still scared of my thoughts. I was still feeling not in control. I felt I didn't feel like me. I didn't feel anything like me. I remember being back to work the next week. Yeah, I was right back to work too. I got released on the Thursday afternoon, so I didn't go to work. The Friday was Good Friday. Then there was Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I had all family get-togethers all weekend. Yeah, it's not good. And then Tuesday I go back to work, and the receptionist calls in sick all week, and I'm on new medication, trying to adjust to that, and now I'm trying to do the receptionist job and my job, and yeah, it wasn't good. By the end of that week on Friday, as some of you guys know, I work at a veterinary clinic. I was putting away one of our post-mortem knives for large animal. The blade is about 6 inches long. The handle is about 4 inches long. I had just cleaned it, was about to put it away, and as I stepped into the lab where it belongs, I lifted my hand up like this and lifted the post-mortem knife up with this hand. My eyes filled with tears, and I said, "I'm sorry." And I slit my wrist. And I could feel the blood running down my arm. But then it all went away, and I was standing in the middle of the lab with my hands down. I'd had a vision again. A vision of killing myself. and it terrified me. Since I've been released from the hospital, I have not hidden anything from my family or my doctors. I tell them everything. And that's the thing with this, is you have to find a support group. You have to find some people that you can talk to. Whether it's healthcare professionals, whether it's a close-knit friend or friends, you have to have that support to get through this. It's not easy. If it was easy, there wouldn't be mental health wards. It's a hard thing living with. They say my visions are what they call intrusive thought. A lot of people describe it as you're driving down the highway and you think, oh, that's a fun tree. Right? But yeah, it's not fun at all. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think this video is long enough, and it kind of, sums up my whole experience with the mental health ward at my local hospital. Overall, I think I probably, as I mentioned before, I think I should have been in there longer than I was. Do I think it might have done better? I have no idea. But I played the system and I got out early. I'm not proud of that. I'm really not. But I don't think it's really hindered my my recovery. But to this day, I still work with, that was the end of March, and it is now nearing the end of October, and I'm still working with my three main doctors, my psychiatrist, my psychologist, and my family doctor, every month or every 2 months. So yeah. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, if you take anything away from this video, I want you to take away that getting help for mental health is not a weakness. It takes a lot of strength to admit you need help. Because we are taught in this life that needing help is a weakness. When in fact, Rome wasn't built by one person. Governments aren't run by one person. Most sports are done by teams, not by one person. Doctors work with nurses. Everybody needs help at some point. So if you need help, go find it. Thanks for watching the video. Have a good one.